Hello, I'm Yahtzee Croshaw, and I've been asked to say a few things about adventure games. The adventure game has existed in many forms since the very beginning of PC gaming, but there's one thing every species of adventure game has in common. You always have to use key in door. Sometimes it's actually a key and actually a door. Sometimes the key is a pickaxe or a grappling hook or a few choice words or holding a magic stick in the air and blowing 4 musical notes out the end. And the door would respectively be a collapsed ceiling, a high wall, a bouncer, or a great big hole in the sky next to a graveyard. And I guess anyone who understands that reference is in exactly the right place. Adventure games were the beginning of PC gaming. Arcade and console gaming were a platform wherein the system didn't exist for any other purpose. There wasn't much you could do with a Nintendo controller besides game and maybe hold it against a piece of paper to draw straight lines with. PC gaming came out of people wanting to have fun with devices that already existed for other reasons, that is to say, typing spreadsheets and other things that ordinary people do. And thus arose the text adventure. Looked like work, played like a game. Of course, this was some time before adventure games evolved to the point of right-click to examine, double-click to solve puzzle for you. The biggest challenge in a lot of text adventures was trying to figure out exactly what syntax the engine was looking for. Use key in door, get out of here. Oh, you wanted to unlock the door with the key. Well, why didn't you say so? I thought you were just trying to scratch the paintwork. With the march of time came 16-color monitors, and text adventures blossomed into graphic adventures, Sierra leading the fight with their AGI engine, which gave us King's Quest, Space Quest, Police Quest, Hero Quest, and Leisure Suit Larry, the black sheep of the Whatever Quest family, and which enjoyed considerable exposure being passed around school playgrounds on unmarked floppy disks. These games still had a text-driven command interface, but also animated 16-color graphics rather laughably described as fully 3D on the backs of the boxes, but unless you worked in a pixelated backdrop factory, the age of games that looked like work from a distance was over. Several early Sierra games pioneered the boss key concept, a button you could smash if you heard your supervisor coming in to instantly replace the screen with a fake spreadsheet or bar graph, thus helping you develop a working relationship based around laziness and mistrust. But anyway, things really got moving in the 90s and the prevalence of mice, or mouses. I've never been sure which, they both kind of sound wrong to me. This was a development for better and worse. I find I prefer the text-driven interface, which was why I used it for one of my amateur AGS games, Trilby's Notes. The problem with point-and-click adventure gameplay is that it's for babbies. You couldn't wave your mouse pointer around the screen looking for the important objects in Space Quest 2. The only way you'd figure out that bit of pipe in the background wasn't significant was by wasting half an hour trying every verb you could think of on it. And point-and-click games allowed for what I at one point termed keyring syndrome, where you could brute force puzzles by dragging every single inventory item you had over everything else one by one, lest anything challenge your squashy inferior brain. But whatever, I was in a minority. This was a time of enormous creativity in video game storytelling. Leading the charge was LucasArts, who took more of a quality over quantity approach as opposed to Sierra, who thought they weren't doing their jobs properly if any of the Quest series didn't have at least 5 installments by 1996. LucasArts brought us reliably excellent adventure games like the Monkey Island series, Day of the Tentacle, Loom, the Indiana Jones Adventures, and eventually Grim Fandango, the game that for many years would be the nearest thing adventure games had to a swan song, but more on that later. At more or less the mid-90s, CDs became the standard format, and with that came the full-motion video craze, in which the game market was flooded with incredibly poor-quality games that came on 16 CDs to accommodate hideously compressed footage of slightly famous people with skin like wet cookie dough. They weren't universally awful. Games like the Tex Murphy series and Zork Grand Inquisitor managed to pull it off by remembering to also have some game in their FMV games, but for the most part, FMV adventure gameplay didn't get much further than click on the thing. They also had this weird fascination with being mature, by which I mean smearing fake blood all over a softcore porn actress's pancakey tits, as in games like Phantasmagoria and Harvester, perhaps in some effort to overcompensate for the nice colourful 16-colour rainbow period. But FMV wasn't what killed adventure games. FMV killed itself pretty thoroughly when polygonal 3D graphics became the norm. Some might argue that the major death knell came when Doom came out and PC gamers realised that the same keyboards and mices they've been using to put key in door could also be used to put bullet in man, which I would imagine would have held greater appeal among increasingly frustrated white-collar workers. And you wouldn't even need a boss key for that sort of thing. Your boss walks in and catches you forcing a long metal tube down a cacademon's throat while yelling, "Who's the man? Who's the man?" And they'd probably just turn on their heel and walk out before you notice them. But while shooters, strategy games and MMORPGs would come to dominate PC gaming, while mainstream releases of adventure games trickled away to almost nothing, no one influence can be fingered as the killer. The fact is, adventure games faded in popularity as part of a natural consequence of advancing technology. You see, earlier on, the lines were pretty cut and dry. PC gaming did text adventures, and console gaming did simplistic platformers and shoot-em-ups with an ending sequence consisting of one screen saying "Congratulation" on a black background. One side was pretty much all story, and the other all gameplay. gameplay because there were strict limits to memory and you could only have one or the other. But as technology has improved, both PC and console gaming have been moving towards the same central point from different directions. You can have decent story and gameplay. With games like Deus Ex or Silent Hill, you can eat your cake and have sex with it. As excellent as the story writing in adventure games could be, it's hard to say they have great gameplay with a straight face. A lot of them seem to be about figuring out what random inventory items can be used to leap onto the train of puzzle logic, utterly unique to the game's designer. But you can see the influence of adventure games in every game with an inventory screen or dialogue options or a system wherein keys must be picked up and applied to doors. You don't see too many pure adventure games around anymore for the same reason you don't see so many platform games or Asteroids clones. That said, though, in recent years, gaming technology has become about as good as it can realistically get in any practical sense, and we've discovered exactly what you get when gameplay and storytelling meet each other right in the middle. Bland swill. Games like Gears of War with repetitive combat and boring, cliched storylines. Man cannot live on bread alone, especially if it's all grey-brown and got bits of grit in it. And now that the race for the best graphics and physics technology has reached an anti-climax, there's a growing resurgence for retro-style alternatives. L.A. Noire is a good example of the mainstream industry dipping a toe back into the adventure pool, although in that case they did slip on the pool edge and break their kneecaps on a drain. But the adventure game has never needed that kind of top-of-the-range graphics, just a few good storytelling ideas and enough things to click on. The amateur adventure game industry is as healthy as ever, and developer-friendly platforms like Steam and the iPad are providing a new, growing environment for new adventure games in classic 2D style, although in the case of the iPad it's not so much point-and-click anymore as it is point-and-leave a smudgy finger mark all over the screen. The games industry still fluctuates in these, its youthful days. Genres come and genres go, and genres come back again, and no one can say what form adventure games will be taking 10 years from now. Maybe we'll all be wearing augmented reality headsets that overlay trolls over our angry bosses. But one thing is for certain, as long as there is interactivity, we will never, ever escape from use key indoor. Thank you for listening.